Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest emperors, struggled with getting out of bed. He's speaking to himself. He's writing his journal, which was for him. And he said this, he said, at dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, I have to go to work. If I'm going to do what I was born for, the thing I was brought into the world to do, whatever that thing is. And that is half the battle, just showing up.
I'm Mark Cook, president of Windfall Partners. We get leaders unstuck and thriving with their teams. After turnarounds as chief executive, the largest ever studies of award-winning leaders, a New York Times bestseller, and 5-star keynotes, I've coached 4,000 client wins at top brands. My Bold Encounters is an advanced system for leading. First, powerful steps on a path forward. Second, problem-solving skills that beat obstacles fast. Now, lead with Bold Encounters today.
Welcome to Bold Encounters. I'm Mark Cook. And I have today with me a super interesting expert at startups and big business. Adam Farr, the CEO and chairman of Farr Ventures. But he's also, as part of that, he's helping to run 2 or 3 very successful small startups. Empanada.co, one of my favorites. And then also stealth startups and a few other things that he's got his fingers in. I am so excited because when I run across someone who has started something, or a couple of things especially, and they have an operational background in big business, when they're able to do both of those, which is very difficult, I know they're focused on steps, I know they're focused on process, and I know they're flexible. So I want them on my show. How are you doing, Adam? That's why you're here.
So good, Mark, man. So good to be with you. You're so good at what you do. I couldn't pass up the opportunity. It's a great day today.
That's nice of you. You know, I want to start at the beginning. We're going to get to some really specific, really hardcore advice about life's work and about how to succeed in making a living. But I want to start at the beginning where things got exciting for you in your life's work. Go to the before where things were just as they were and you hadn't had some inciting incident yet or something big happen. Yeah. You were just you.
Man, that'll take me back. There's a few stories I could tell, but if I go back to some of my best earliest memories, for those that'll understand this reference, I'll give it. Maybe some will have to look it up, but you remember the old Buttercream gang back in the late 80s, early 90s? Bunch of kids. It was a movie that came out. Bunch of kids riding around the neighborhood on their bikes. Yeah. We lived on our bikes. This past weekend, I took my kids over to Rose Park where I grew up, and I pointed out the old BMX dirt hills that we used to ride on. It's now a library, but the space is still there, and that was me on my bike outside playing sports, skinning up my knee. Baseball, football, wrestling, whatever it was. If there was a sport, if there was camaraderie, if there was a team, that was me. That's what I did.
I have a lot of empathy for that. Yeah. We had a little group of friends. We called it the Lindsay Bike Club. It wasn't I wasn't president. Yeah. It was my friend, may he rest in peace, Brad Lindsay. But we painted our bikes purple.
Wow.
Really bold choice. Yeah. And they didn't look good. We didn't know how to paint bikes. But I remember getting a few sidewalk skins on the knees too. So those were good times, very good times. I wish kids had those times again as much. So when did things start brewing in your mind about, wow, I'm going to have to maybe support myself sometimes, help other people I call customers, make a living and impact this planet and this species? What do you?
Yeah, that's, I go back to when I was 16 years old. There was a point in time where I moved out of my parents' house at a very young age, between 16 and 17, and I had to start figuring life out at a very young age. Earlier than that, 8 years old, I was knocking on doors, asking neighbors if I could mow their lawn, if I could rake their leaves, if I could shovel their snow. It was just the thing I did. I was always out there trying to make a buck, trying to make something work, trying to figure out how to grow personally, professionally, and financially. And so my earliest memories of growing up was out hustling in the street, trying to figure out how to make a dollar, honestly.
Well, let's pull something out for parents. Why did you do that instead of just say, hey, Mom, give me some money? What?
The easy answer is my parents didn't have the money. They didn't have the money. I grew up in Rose Park. my dad worked hard, my mother worked hard to raise us, and there wasn't a lot left over. And so they were just trying to pay the bills, and I never felt, as the oldest son, that it was my place to just ask for a handout, right? It was, Adam, you need to go out and you need to make it. And so as an early entrepreneur, 8 years old, that's what I figured I had to do.
You just went out.
I just went at it, knocking doors.
I love it.
Yes, sir.
I remember one time selling little perfume vials in a round lipstick container. My dad said, "You want money? Go sell."
Yeah.
So great lessons.
Do you remember the Scoutorama that used to be here in Utah?
A lot of selling.
You would have to go sell these sheets of paper of coupons for $20 door to door, just so you can win like a stuffed animal or a little cool little trinket to go to the Scoutorama that was hosted at the Fair Park. I don't think they do it anymore.
I don't know.
But they did that for a long time. So growing up, you had to learn how to knock on doors. You had to learn how to talk to people. You needed to learn to get your point across and do it quickly, because those doors slam fast when you're knocking on them.
Young sellers, yeah.
It's fun.
So let's move on and let's talk about a time when everyone has a lot of difficult things happen. It is what life is for, practically.
Yeah.
When was a big one for you? When did it really throw the action of making a living in motion for you?
Yeah, so there's a few stories I could tell. I'm going to start with a very early memory. I'm in downtown Buenos Aires, Argentina. I'm walking one of the busier streets. I walk into a bookstore, and up on the shelf of a bookstore, I see a book by somebody named Dale Carnegie, a hardcover book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, second edition. Smelt like mothballs. Right? I'm in Buenos Aires. It's in English. It was a couple of pesos. I was still trying to make it. I didn't have a whole lot of extra pesos in my pocket. But I grab the book off the shelf, I make the investment in the book, and I start reading it. And one of the things that stood out to me in life when I was reading this book, up until that point, I had focused so much on myself, on what I thought I wanted, on what I thought I needed. And one of the most powerful points in that book was when I read the passage regarding the way to really get what you want to get in life is to help others get what they want to get. And I realized in that moment my life's purpose was to help others achieve what they wanted to achieve. Very simply. That was a profound moment. I walked out of the store, I had a couple of pesos left. I remember being with my wife, we had just gotten married, walked out of the store, and I turned because I saw a lady selling flowers in the street. It was our last few pesos. I wasn't going to get paid for a few more weeks. I didn't know how I was going to make the bills. I didn't know how I was going to pay the utilities. I didn't know how I was going to make rent. I took those pesos and I bought my wife a flower. That was a powerful moment for me to realize that no matter how bad it gets, no matter how tough it is, you still have choices, right? And the quality of those choices are going to determine the quality of the outcomes in your life and where you make it in life. And so I'm not maybe advocating for take your last $2 every time and buy your wife a flower, but it will help. It'll help set your mind. It'll help focus on what's important. And those relationships, those moments, those small little moments in life, they matter. They matter greatly.
Yeah, for sure. In fact, I want to comment on that, but I don't want to steal your thunder. I want you to share with my audience. What do you call yourself on your show?
Yeah, so we talk on my show, so we got a little podcast with my partner Doug and I, and we focus on, it's called Virtue and Victory, and we focus on Stoicism, strategy, and how to live a life well lived. And we take the ancient philosophy that's been around for now 2,000 plus years, and we help folks apply it to life. And so philosopher, father, Stoic. Business is fine. I like running businesses. I like helping people run businesses, but that's not my purpose in life. I've found a way to do it and to do it really, really well and to help a lot of other people do it. But really my purpose in life is to help others. I found an outlet to do that in my podcast. And I realized a long time ago, when in another moment, because I want to talk about this moment briefly, to go back to the question you asked, my oldest daughter was 2 years old. It would have been 2014-ish. And I was leaving for yet another business trip. At the time, I was the executive director of operations for a large multinational bank. And I ran the operations, among other things, for the international money movement product. I was not even 30 years old yet. I was flying around the world, business class, staying in 5-diamond hotels, living a life that most people probably dream of. At least when you watch social media, they tell you that that's the life you should strive for. I was doing extremely well in my career. I had a great boss that I looked up to, but we were on the road every week or every other week, traveling the world, setting up international operations for a large money movement provider in the U.S. I was based out of San Francisco. My 2.5-year-old daughter, when I said goodbye this time, she didn't cry. She was used to me leaving.
Yeah.
And that hit me hard. I recognized in that moment, she didn't cry. She's used to you being gone. Is this really what you want in life? From a career standpoint, I was doing very, very well. Things were going extremely well. But in my personal life, as a father, things obviously had taken a turn in a direction I didn't want them to.
Yeah.
And so as I walked to my taxi that day, I reflected on that. 2 months later, I quit the job.
Really?
2 months later, I quit the job and realized that what was really important for me was being a father. I needed to be there for my kids. And the fact that she just didn't cry and got used to me leaving every other week for weeks at a time on business trips, that was an impactful moment in my life. And I had to step back and I had to reflect. That was a long trip. I don't know, I was probably going to Asia or somewhere. That was a long trip for me because I, instead of her crying, I was the one internally, emotionally damaged, if you will. And I needed to reflect on that. That was a powerful moment for me to step back and say, Adam, what is the purpose of life? And are you fulfilling that purpose or not?
Yeah. Deep and thoughtful moment for you.
Yeah.
When I think 9 out of 10 people say, I'm 30, I'm a puppy, and I'm flying all over the world, and business travel's great, and the countries I see are amazing, and the meetings that I'm in, I'm handling, and father, your first title you give yourself. That's I love that when you say that. Then you talk about other things. Yeah. But I also noticed when I walked in, what you said earlier, I have a place that I go eat breakfast once in a while. I saw your new place just a couple doors down, and I have had some empanadas and enjoyed them, but wondered what yours would be like because that was my only experience. And so I saw you guys out in the parking lot putting it together, and the second that you sensed that I might be a repeat customer or that we might have a relationship for any reason, the dollars didn't matter anymore. You just grabbed me, pulled me in, fed me twice now, in fact, and I'm coming back a lot more actually because of that. You walk your talk, and it seems like quitting 2 months later is a big walk your talk with fatherhood, your other title. Yeah. Why do you think that is? Why do you think you're so into fatherhood?
That's
obviously it's a natural thing, but there's a lot of people that don't, especially at 30.
Yeah, I think we all need to reflect on what our purpose is in life. And I think we need to give that some deep thought. I encourage your listeners, my listeners regularly, to really meditate on what's actually important. When you look back, when it's all over, whether that's 40 years from now or 4 days from now or 4 hours from now, what will have actually mattered? And I think if you take some time to deeply consider that. The Stoics call it Memento Mori. Okay, Memento Mori means we all shall die, loosely translated. Okay, and the Stoics take death as a motivator. If you were to die today, did you accomplish the things you want to accomplish or not? Right? And what I realized after, I'm a guy that likes to learn. Wisdom's important to me. I like to learn. I always have my books with me. I'm always learning from everybody I interact with, good, bad, the ugly. I'm always looking for ways to learn. I'm naturally a very curious person. Everyone that knows me, that's worked with me over the years in any capacity, knows that one of my go-to phrases is stay curious. They'll come in my office frustrated, angry, and I'll go straight to let's stay curious, let's assume positive intent, and let's think through this from their perspective, right? So curiosity, I think, triggers the search for wisdom or knowledge, okay? And so when I reflected, when I looked at all the research, when I looked at what's out there, where they talk about what people say on their deathbed, it's never, I wish I would have worked harder. I wish I would have made more money. I wish I would have bought more cars. I wish I would have spent more time in hotels. That's never what they say.
Yeah.
They reflect on who's standing around them, the quality of those relationships, right? And so for me, as I looked at the Stoic concept of Memento Mori, and realizing that eventually this would all be over, and by the time it's over, it's going to seem like it went so quickly, I needed to set my priorities. What was my purpose? And purpose one, the moment I made the decision to bring children into this world, my role as a father became the most important role in my life. Yeah. And showing up every single day as a father. And what that means to me to be a father is to teach my children and to love my children. I talk to my kids all the time. I'm going to teach you and I'm going to love you. Sometimes it's going to be tough love, but I'm going to love you and I'm going to teach you. Yeah. And that way, that when you're ready to go out into this world, you truly will be ready. Yeah. And so that came from deep reflection of what is my purpose. And when I look back at the end of my life, what will I have wanted to accomplish? And I realized more than anything, I wanted my kids and hopefully their kids around me, and maybe even their kids around me at the end of it all. That's what I wanted. And so to do that, it started today of being a good father, of being there for my kids, so that eventually maybe when I need them, they will be there for me because I was there for them.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. I remember hearing an author. She made one of the bestseller lists. I don't know if it was New York or Amazon or what it was, but she had gone hundreds of patients through hospice centers and talked to the families, investigated the situation, and said just what you did in a very statistical, matter of fact way. She found what you just said. It's really true. And then all, as far as what people think about, I'm not sure she's had the wisdom you just expressed, but the fact that people really care about the meaningful and not exciting. The other thing that makes me think about is a couple of things where, there's 3 Dans that wrote kind of the end-all be-all psychology 101 textbook that all colleges use. 3 Dans from Harvard, and they show someone's chart. I don't know who they do, but it's in their book, and it's a continuum, and you can go up. It's actually more of a chart, a matrix almost, where you can go up on the axis. Mm-hmm. And you can have more excitement. They use arousal and other words like that are technical psychology words, but it's really about me getting my brain all dopamined up and excited, and then on the going out to the right is meaning or valence, which is goodness. Yeah. And both of those have an opposite that we don't need to talk about, but it's bad and it's evil and it's death and all the things we're talking about. Yeah. And it really feels like to me a life like you're describing is not chasing just the excitement for the short term for me, but it's really about chasing that meaning for the long run. And ideally, when you get both, you've pursued goodness because you're on the right side of that thing, but you're getting excitement too. And that's a very difficult set of things to find, but you can find those in life. But if you're just choosing excitement, we all have heard it a million times, a day, a second, a week later, that fades, those chemicals dissipate, and you're back right where you were. Meaning and the memories really matter. Last thing I want to comment, the death thing is really abrupt and radical, but it's interesting. There's an Asian monk sect of some kind, and I don't remember that name either, but they do this too. I mean, there's people that think about this besides the Romans and the Stoics. Some people are just morbid enough to think how serious life is, and it directs them to meaning, and that's really a profound idea. And in a more temporal way, it makes me think of a moment I had working for a company for a really long time, and we used to have these retirement parties, and they celebrate someone retiring. And I remember thinking, wow, I do not want to retire from here. And I looked at my current work for that week, and I thought, wow, there's just not anything this week that's that notable, or that I should feel inspired by, that I helped other people, like you're saying, to a great extent. I'm just doing a lot of busy work to get somewhere they want.
Yeah.
And I think even if you're on a job, you can take that approach, like the work you're doing, even at that platform, even in that company, is it worthy of helping other people, the customers, your coworkers that are down the value chain that help the customers, delivering the value to the outcomes of the customers to the point where you're going to be proud standing up someday that's going to go like that at a retirement, having someone say, we're really glad he went to all of those meetings he didn't need to. We're really glad he did his email so effectively. You know, it's a really powerful thought.
It's a real reflection. And, you know, we talk a lot about chasing. I like to talk to people about attracting. And it's a choice in life. Am I going to chase, or am I going to attract? What am I looking to attract, right?
Yeah.
I walked away, you know, we should call this episode Walking Away. I walked away from a very lucrative career in corporate America about a year and a half ago, little under a year and a half ago. I was the chief operating officer of a very large organization, Fortune 10, we'll leave it at that. If people really want to know, they can look me up on LinkedIn, right? It's not that difficult. And what it really boiled down to was exactly what you're describing, was, okay, I can follow this career path. I can have more money than I could ever spend, most likely. I can retire with more money than I could, or my kids could probably ever spend. And it's a pretty secure route and path. Or I can reflect as a Stoic on what's actually important. The reality is, I wasn't in agreement with the things I was being asked to do. And it wasn't good for my soul. As a Stoic, the only good is excellent character. And if you truly believe that, then when something's happening that's not allowing you to prioritize excellence in character and excellence in your soul, your thoughts, beliefs, that's how we define soul, then you need to really ask yourself, is this truly a priority for me? Or is a priority for me making money above everything else? And I knew what that answer was. And so it was a very quick, easy decision of, hey, I'm not going to continue to do this. I'm not going to continue to chase quarterly profits just to be able to say that we made enough money for our investors. That's just not how I operate.
In the wrong way.
Yeah.
Let me ask you something personal about that. You know, you're going to have me on your show, and I asked permission when you started talking about helping others and some of these ethical things. I said, you know, I happen to be a Christian, and I believe, I'm the least maybe effective. I need to be better at living my own creed, but I believe very strongly in it, and I'm really inspired by a couple of key points that are related. Without going into that, I just bring that up because it makes me curious. When you think of what you just said about why you didn't follow the, sometimes it's not just a directive or an expectation that's set. Sometimes it's just kind of a mini culture of executives that's gently and without words swaying you into the wrong direction that isn't right. And I'm curious, do you think of that as ethical or moral? Tell me the Stoic version of what that badness, that malevolence feels like to a Stoic. What is that all about?
I mean, the first word that comes to my mind is it's extremely uncomfortable, right? And I like where you're going. It's exactly that. It's culture. It's cultural. People are being told, this is what's good for the company, therefore if it's good for the company we must do it, and what was good for the company is chasing profits, because a lot of these publicly traded companies are constantly chasing quarterly profits, quarterly gains, right? They're compensated based off of, did you make enough money or not? And so when that's happening culturally, things get misplaced from a priority standpoint. I think people tend to justify why they're doing it, that there's a greater good that they're chasing, and therefore they're going to continue to chase it. I think if people are being honest and fair, they'd step back and reflect maybe on a deeper level of what's actually important and what's actually the priority in life. As a Stoic, we have what's known as the discipline of desire. Okay, and so it's one of the first things you learn is, can I control it? Yes or no? Many times the answer is no, you cannot. In fact, the Stoic would tell us that there's only 3 things you truly can control: your thoughts, your judgments, your actions / desires. That's it. And if you can't fully control it, the only thing you can control is how you think about it, right? And so what I would say to your question of what would a Stoic do is, how does a Stoic approach it? A Stoic looks at it and assumes the greater good. We don't assume these people are bad people. We don't assume they're doing it for bad reasons. We're assuming that they just don't know any better. They haven't gained the wisdom in order to make better, different decisions, to prioritize what's actually good in the world. They've placed a higher priority on making money because they think that is the greater good. They do truly believe that. Yeah. And so they're not bad people, right? Yeah. They just haven't learned. They haven't been maybe enlightened, to use a term that maybe some people would use.
Yeah. Yeah, I may end up saying this on every episode I ever do, but I'm going to share with the audience what I shared with you the other day. You know, in many books, I'll use Adam Grant's book. He has a book and goes through a million studies. Is it better to give, or is it better to take? And he goes through all these academic, rigorous studies on outcomes with people that are both givers, takers, and in the middle. And overwhelmingly, in the long run, you are, or one is, better off taking care of the other person. When you find yourself in a group of people, it gets a little messy because you're trying to help a boss, you're trying to help a co-executive or something like that, and the pressure unspoken might, in one little case, direct you to do something that's super unethical or even illegal, but doesn't seem so bad. Like a bribe or something that's doesn't seem like a big deal, but it's serious to the law. And it's important, I think, to say, you know, it's all about the customer outcome. It's not my boss that's really the boss. The reason we organize 350,000 people in this bank or whatever it is to get an outcome for the people that came to us for that consequence or set of consequences. And that is always number one. And if you're doing it so you can't make a profit or you can't cash flow, you have to manage better. And if you can't with great management, then the organization probably doesn't have a purpose on this earth. And so to flip those backwards and say, no, I'm a taker for me first, I'm a taker for us first, and I give it as a very dangerous place to, even if you're a little firm, to find yourself, even a little firm. So excellent. That was a difficult thing. You know, you had to find your way out of that and probably upset some people. Tell us the gritty story, that, not without names and such, but tell us a little bit of the grit of that. That's a difficult situation to be in.
Yeah, it's never easy, but you know, we talk a lot about choosing your hard. It's hard to stay and feel a certain way, to have your cortisol levels through the roof because of how stressed you are. It's hard to not be able to sleep at night because you're so stressed about hitting that number or figuring out a new way to make money. Or you've got to choose your hard in life. It's also very hard to walk away not knowing how you're going to pay your mortgage, how you're going to afford your bills, because life is expensive, right? We're in unprecedented times, whether it's with inflation, whether it's in cost, whether it's in the cost of an egg as an example. I mean, it's incredible the times that we're currently in. Some would say maybe dangerous times, right? And so you have to choose your hard. For me, it was relatively easy because I know what my priorities are, right? When I saw what was happening in large corporations, and it's not just one, it's many, it was easy for me as a Stoic, with the priorities that I have of what it means to live a life well lived, to say, it's time to walk away from this, right? You know, all the things came in. Hey, what about a retention package? Is there a different way we can work through this if we made this adjustment, right? There's always that. when you're a senior executive with a lot on the line, with a lot of experience, with a lot of knowledge, I think it's really kind of people to try and retain and ask the question, is there anything we can do to convince you to stay? But when you've made up your mind of something not being a culture that you're willing to tie your legacy to, willing to tie your soul to, it's really quite simple to walk away. If it's not for you, realize it's not for you and move towards that thing that is for you. Yeah. I think so often we get so convinced that this is the only path, there's only one path. What I remind people all the time is there's multiple trails to the top of a mountain.
Yeah.
There's multiple paths to the top of a mountain. First, define what mountain you're looking to climb, and then chart out a few different courses of how to get there. I think that's really, really important. And so, yeah, there was moments when I made the decision to walk away from that career without having a clear path of where I was heading, of fear, of maybe some depression, maybe some anxiety. I mean, I think there's a lot of names and labels, but for me, there was just truly a lot of peace knowing that I was moving towards something better, moving towards, and the faith that I have and the commitment I have to the universe and to helping other people. I knew everything was going to be okay. I didn't doubt that, right? Now, I think a lot of that mental toughness comes from the training that I've had in Stoicism, the things I've gone through in life. I have full confidence in my ability to figure things out. Never waver in that confidence. And so, yeah, there was some conversations had of, do you really want to do this? We'd love for you to stay. Is there a way we could work through this? But it was a very simple, I'm moving towards something for me, has nothing to do with you all sitting at this table. It's time for me to move towards a greater good, something better for me personally. It was a very personal decision. So I think that's what I'm comfortable sharing about the circumstances.
So there's other people in life besides you 10 people.
That's right.
I'm going to go help the other 20 people that I can help tomorrow afternoon better.
Exactly.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So, we have 3 topics left that I want to talk about, and whatever else you want to talk about.
Sure.
One is you leave, and you had already been doing some investment in some other activities that were very entrepreneurial, and yet there it seems like when you leave that position, you're all in with your small little businesses, and you've got your dear Florencia, you're partners with her in one of them, the empanada.co, and some good friends in the others. And so tell us about that flip from big company and meetings and emails and all that big companies entail to fast, really agile type startup land.
Yeah, it's a fair question. It's a good question, right? I think the number one rule that I share with people, if you're going to do this, is you've got to show up. You've got to have somewhere to show up to. So rule number one is you got to keep showing up, whether that's to your morning meditations or your morning studies, whether it's to the gym in the morning, whether it's to a rented space, whatever it is, you've got to have somewhere to show up to, right? I had a vision in my head of the businesses I was creating, had been creating, or was going to create. But rule number one for me was, when I didn't have the structure of a 60-hour-a-week Fortune 10 executive level, C-level job, that structure, if you don't find new structure is really important. Structure, when you're building a building, having the right structure so it doesn't fall apart. Just like that in life, structure is very, very important. You have to have a structure, right? And so what I tell people, I've got 3 rules really. You've got to show up, you got to work hard, and you've got to resonate excellence in everything you do. Those are my 3 rules. Okay, show up, work hard, and arete. Arete is excellence. That's really what it translates to from a Stoic perspective. Okay.
Is that Latin or what?
Arete, I think that's the Greek word for excellence,
Mm-hmm.
really, if I were to loosely define it, right? Mm-hmm. But arete is a very, very well-known word that's used in Stoicism, and really it can be translated into virtue as well. So living a virtuous life really means living an excellent life. A Stoic taught us that whether you're building a house, building a chimney, cooking an empanada, it should be done excellently, because the way you do anything is the way you do everything. And so showing up excellently matters. And virtues in a Stoic world are defined as moderation, wisdom, courage, and justice. And so as a Stoic, the path to excellence is living those virtues, right? So seeking out knowledge would be wisdom. Justice, what ought be and what ought not to be. Living in harmony with nature, that's something we talk about a lot, living in harmony with the natural order of things and defining that for you, right? So we can go on and on about those things, right? But when I left that structure of corporate America, I needed to have structure in my life, because I think as humans we must have structure. If it's good for the bee, it's good for the beehive, and vice versa. If it's good for the beehive, it's good for the bee. We can learn a lot of things by reflecting on and observing nature and the natural order of things. Again, something I love about Stoicism, right? And there's structure to nature. The bees do what they're supposed to do, the way they communicate, the way they find new homes, the way they prepare for winter. I mean, it is fascinating, the structure around a bee. We're in the beehive state. People should really understand bees. There's a lot we can learn about bees, right? But just like that, I was able to stay very focused on what I was looking to achieve, with my ultimate goal being to help as many people as I can accomplish what they want to accomplish. So I helped people set up businesses. I helped people put together business plans. I helped businesses grow 20, 30, 40%. There's one business that I'm working with right now that they have added millions of dollars in revenue annually just within the last few months.
That's terrific.
And it wasn't a ton of work. It was being strategic, being thoughtful, applying lessons that I've learned over 25 years of big business to their smaller, medium-sized business. And we're going to triple their revenues over the next 18 months. It's a focused group of leaders. It's a focused group of founders. They've been doing it one way for 17 years. They're excited to do it differently. And it's fun for me to walk into that fresh, invigorating environment and say, hey, here's some lessons I've learned. If we apply them, here's what our thesis is of what this is going to turn into, right?
Yeah.
That's fun stuff. It's hard, right?
Super hard.
We think about restaurant. You talked about empanada. I'll hit on it for a moment. Okay, empanada. What was the thesis? The thesis was we don't have very good food options that fit the following needs, or that solve for the following needs: fast, fresh, affordable, and tasty. We didn't have it. Because we didn't have it, as a business person that spends a lot of time in meetings, a lot of time in boardrooms, a lot of time in offices, if I want to stay healthy and optimize my health, a big portion of that is how we're eating, right? So I said, okay, what are the food options out there that are healthier, fresher, faster, and affordable? I kept going back to a handful of items. I spent 4 years living in Argentina. Argentina eats probably per capita more empanadas than any other country in the world, is my guess. It has to be. Millions a day is my guess. Okay, let's build a business around empanadas. Healthier, fresher, faster, affordable. And they taste really, really good.
And they're really clean to hold.
It's clean. Whole food ingredients. You don't need forks and knives. Right.
Stuff.
So we solved the problem, right? I love solving problems. And that's what I talk to everybody about that I work with in any of the companies. What problem are we solving for? X to Y by when? How quickly can we get there? What is our plan? Let's execute against it. Let's just be really structured in how we do that. 4 months later, we've sold over 50,000 empanadas.
That's terrific.
Team of all women running that company, doing a phenomenal job. And it's fun to sit back and reflect on all of their work. It's now the most popular empanada in the state of Utah. I mean, Saturday you walk in there, we've got a line of 15 people willing to wait to get their empanadas, right? And so again, it's life is such that if you can dream it, and if you can take that dream and you can write it down, and if you can write it down, you can put a plan against it, and if you can put a plan against it, you have something to execute against. If you have something to execute against, you have a structure that you can follow, you can win.
Yeah.
You can win time and time again, and you don't have to do things that go against living a life of high moral character or a life of excellence, or arete as we like to talk about, right? And so I'm passionate about helping folks accomplish what they want to accomplish. And it goes back to that moment in Argentina, 2 pesos left in my pocket, buying a flower for the wife, buying a book, and searching out knowledge and wisdom. That's a powerful thing. Yeah. That's prioritizing, I think, in my opinion, the right things.
Yeah, it is.
I think a lot of people prioritize the wrong things.
Yeah.
And because we're in unprecedented times, my view is people will continue to prioritize the wrong things. Right? I looked at a study.
A lot of pressure.
A lot of pressure. I looked at a study the other day, Mark, that it looked over the last 100 years. It was one of these timeline videos, right? And essentially 100 years ago, you spent, call it 15% of your time with family, 10% of your time doing something else, 9% of your time at church, 8% of your time at work, 0% of your time on social media. In the last 100 years, 25% of your time is spent on social media, right? That is causing unknown consequences
which are becoming
to society.
Known.
Yeah. We're starting to realize, hey, this might not be that good, right? And so I think it's a time, because of how unprecedented things are, whether it's politically or otherwise, I think it's time for people to really reflect on what Socrates told us, which is true wisdom is knowing you know nothing, right? And so my advice to people when they come to me, first and foremost, is to empty their mind and truly believe that true wisdom is knowing that you know nothing. You know nothing about the outcomes because all these things are so unprecedented. And so if you know nothing about them, it's time to really be thoughtful about how you're going to respond to what's happening. And it's really important that you come up with a plan that you can execute against, right? And so we talk a lot about that in a lot of the businesses of, hey, these are unprecedented times.
So is the heart of that be vigilant in awareness and then plan and attack? Is that kind of what it's all about?
I think I'm going to summarize it back to yes, and first and foremost, step back and reflect on how you prioritize what you want to accomplish in life.
Love that.
What is your definition of success? You know, as the Coveys would teach us, begin with the end in mind. What is the end for you personally, right? And then work backwards from that.
Well, I haven't worked for him for a long time,
right?
And you know, the essence of that really is long term too. Like you can, you don't want to say the short term, like what can I get out of this now? It's really what you can help, like we said earlier, help others, but also in the long run. And if you're trying to help yourself, if you're focused on yourself, it has to be the long term, because that's the thing that resembles most helping other people. Yeah. And it doesn't get you into trouble as much as the hedonistic stuff. I have another question about Stoicism that you sparked, and you just taught me something about myself before I go there, and that is that when you leave corporate America, which I did too, and then you find yourself out on your own. You know, mine was in a long series of events, including a death-defying spine infection and 4 months on my back. But when you find yourself in a position where corporate America is not fitting your life, and you go out on your own for whatever reason and however you do it, and you find this structure you're talking about and a place to go, or you've got to show up, it made me realize that, you know, I have half of the house in the morning as a semi-empty nester now, and my wife's little business is clear on the other side, and we're doing our thing. But mine is very much about being out with clients and helping people like you, CEOs, you know, do better in this quarter and 5 years. And I found myself not loving to go into the home office, even though it's a great home office and it breaks all the rules that people say that they hate about home offices. But you're making me realize there's probably some method to the madness of me always wanting to schedule a conversation first thing in the morning early.
Yeah.
I have to go to their office. I have to be on a Zoom. I have to be on the phone. A conversation, as it just livens you up because you have to do what we're doing right now. You share ideas and thoughts and you get all excited and it gets you moving after the conversation.
Yeah.
I think it's a great place to find yourself in a conversation first thing when you go out on your own, don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, I'll reflect back on what nature teaches us. We are social beings.
Yeah.
We need that engagement and interaction within our cosmopolis, which really is the community we participate in, right? That is very natural. Mm-hmm. If you find yourself not wanting to be around people, not wanting to have conversations, not wanting to have relationships, there's probably a deeper issue that must be solved for to feel what people are trying to feel. And really what it boils down to is the quality of those relationships. So no, I mean, that is exactly what I'm talking about. That's how you show up.
Yeah.
You show up for other people. You show up in a relationship. That is rule number one. You following rule number one. You got to show up.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Love that. I also think for those that don't feel that way, that they aren't feeling like a social being, the introverts and such, I learned through a sliver of introvertness.
Mm-hmm.
As one of the people I interviewed, who happened to be a psychiatrist or a psychologist, told me, "You're an introvert." I said, "You have that so wrong."
Yeah.
But she found a sliver and proved it, and I won't tell that story here. But the lesson she told me was shockingly straightforward and short-term and simple. I just had to execute it. And as I've listened to people, because I've been curious about that comment towards me, if I'm listening to a podcast or reading a book and they're talking about being introverts,
Yeah.
I study those different kinds a little bit. And I've learned that is almost always the case. That I don't want to diminish some that have a very serious issue and they need some attention and help deeply. But I do want to say that there's a lot of people that may assume they're in that position that might find tremendous help with some simple little bits of work, baby steps, and all of a sudden it breaks free.
Yeah.
At least in each of the, you have to do it like a bowling alley. You have this kind of introvertness and that kind of introvertness. So you have to solve this. You have to solve all 10 lanes.
Yeah.
Or you can at least solve 3 and you're better off,
Yeah.
But the question I wanted to ask you about Stoicism, because I've read the Meditations halfway and certainly get called Marcus because of my name, Marcus Aurelius, a lot. And love the good version of Gladiator, etc.
Yeah.
So in a modern sense, clearly Marcus Aurelius was not a peaceful guy. And I assume that I'm making an assumption, I want you to clean it up. I'm making an assumption the modern Stoics are about prioritization and attacking the tasks and attacking the differentiators that will bless other people's jobs, lives, teams, customers, fortunes. That the aggressiveness of Rome, what we all assume is Roman, not everyone's a historian. I just know that Marcus Aurelius was an incredibly effective and a thoughtful leader in some ways, but obviously conquered places. Yeah. And then the next 4 were just a disaster, hedonistic and violent and all sorts of nonsense, which was their demise, really. Yeah. But tell me about the good portion and how that part of it expresses itself in a modern life philosophy.
Yeah, so I would venture to say, not to challenge you, we're all entitled to our own thoughts. I would say that
I just don't have many thoughts.
Marcus was absolutely peaceful. He prioritized peace.
I didn't know that. Tell us about that.
He spent a lot of, in fact, Meditations is his personal journal on his personal thoughts. That's what Meditations is. It's just his journal. Mm-hmm. He didn't anticipate that would be, we assume he didn't anticipate that was going to be shared with millions and millions of people, right? And so you reflect on those very personal writings. Marcus dealt with depression, anxiety, fear. We can see that in his writings, right? He dealt with all the same emotions we all deal with. There's a quote that I love. I reflect on it and I say it all the time. I don't know who said it. I should look it up and memorize that piece. But I believe Marcus lived by this, which is, I would rather be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. And so, yes, he was prepared for war because there were people that he had to defend, and war was the way that happened.
It was the time of the world.
It was just the time of the world. The Roman Empire was the most powerful empire. He was one of the last great emperors. He had a responsibility. Marcus spent a lot of time in a tent. He spent a lot of time out in nature. He spent a lot of time out on the battlefield, right? It's a fascinating history. And one of my favorite meditations, book 5, verse 1, he talks about, and remember, these are his personal notes. Yeah. He's speaking to himself. He's writing his journal, which was for him. And he said this, he said, at dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, reflect on that for a moment. Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest emperors, struggled with getting out of bed. He's speaking to himself. At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, I have to go to work. As a human being, what do I have to complain of? If I'm going to do what I was born for, the thing I was brought into the world to do. Right? All of us go through that.
Yeah.
So that's why rule number 1 for me, showing up, is so important. Because showing up, you get out of bed, you take your shower, you brush your teeth, you shave, you get dressed, and you go do that thing, no matter how much you don't want to do it.
Yeah.
No matter how much you feel sad, no matter how frustrated you are, no matter how, you got to show up and do that thing. Whatever that thing is. And that is half the battle, just showing up.
So he's not quite the short-handed character written into all the movies.
Gladiator is an example.
Bad things. No. So it's a book realizing what you just said, that he's talking to himself. It's far more fascinating what I've already read so far, because that is a very important thing, to create the structures in your own mind of how things should be and how you choose to live your minutes on the planet, like you've been talking about.
You know, a lot of these influencers talk about journaling now. It's a big thing. Everyone's talking about journaling, right? Yeah. Where did they learn that? Seneca, Socrates, Epictetus, right? All these journals that are out there, they're just reflecting on ancient teachings. Marcus Aurelius with meditations, right? So everyone talks about journaling like it's some brand new, it's been around for thousands of years. And it was a way to deal with the emotions that we have in life, the struggles that we have in life. Marcus, I'll go back to it, he spent a lot of time in a tent, right? He was at peace. He was meditating. He was finding out how to stay centered, find that Zen that people call it, right? Because he knew that if he was at peace, if he was centered, he could make better decisions, whether it be on the battlefield or in the palace as the emperor, or as a father, or as a husband, or as a friend. He knew that finding that peace and setting himself up every morning, he reflected, I don't remember which meditation it was, but he reflected and he said, in the morning, remind yourself that you're going to be met by the frustrated, by the angry, by people that haven't spent time centering themselves. And it's most likely because they just don't know any better. And so it allowed him to be a compassionate ruler. I think he was a very compassionate man. I think we can tell that in his writings. He was reminding himself daily, hey, today, translated into modern day wording, today you're going to be met with some people that probably don't have a lot of good things going on in life. Be patient with them. When you get frustrated in traffic because somebody cuts you off, give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe they're in a rush to get to the hospital because a family member's dying. Reflect and be thoughtful. Just give them the benefit of the doubt. And I think this world would be such a better place if we would just step back for a moment and realize that people are where they are in life, and it might be a very different place than you are in life. But if we would all take a moment to find that center every morning, center ourselves so we can show up better for our friends, our family, and the world would be a very different, much better place.
We are a little softer. I mean, he was dealing with people that were walking in the mud with a broken sandal a great deal of the time in the cold. And before we wind down, we're going to get to some seriously hard and specific, hardcore, specific practical advice in a minute to finish. But before we get there, in kind of that bonus last 10 minutes, let's talk about your marketing.
Yeah.
We talked about the operations. We talked about life philosophy. You've discovered marketing, not just operations in a bank. And give us some great secrets. If you're an entrepreneur and you're starting a new venture like you've been doing, what are your secrets for marketing? The specifics, as specific as you dare give away on my show.
Yeah, no, I think the word that I go straight to is engagement. How are you driving engagement? Mm-hmm. Engagement can be defined a lot of different ways. Let's just take the empanada company, for example. Mm-hmm. That's sold 50,000 plus empanadas in 4 months, right? Mm-hmm. There's a lot of different ways to engage. You shared a very kind story. The way I treated you when you walked into my parking lot is the way that my team at Empanada Co., my wife, the employees, treat everybody that walks in there. We create an experience. We're engaging with them. Mm-hmm. By engaging with them and creating an experience for them, we are creating an advocate for our business, which is going around telling people, hey, this food's really, really good. It's healthier, it's fresher, it's tastier. Their crust is phenomenal. But the experience is even better. They're doing it the way things used to be done. They remember our names. They remember our face. They remember what we liked, right? And so in every business, I think whether it's B2B, B2B2C, or B2C, doesn't matter. Yeah. Differentiate the experience in a way that your customers want to engage with you and advocate for you. Yeah. And so that, if that is the premise of every marketing campaign out there, there's a lot of ways to go about that, you'll be successful. Yeah. Create engagement. By creating engagement, you create advocacy. You create advocates, you're going to have customers for life.
Yeah. And friends for life.
That's right.
I've caught you a couple of times with your generals, almost like your Marcus Aurelius. You're sitting down. I showed up early a couple of times, and I'm waiting, and you're orchestrating this engagement. And it's not engagement as in, I've got a social media platform, I need to respond to someone who made a comment that's whatever. You're talking about human relationships, and I love the word engagement because it's not, if we say relationships, it's so big and general, and it can be long-term and not right now, and they're showing up in your store or when you're trying to make a sale this week or whatever. And you're orchestrating several people in these companies, and you're sitting down and you're very gently going through what needs to happen in the manner in which it needs to happen, and engagement's top of the list.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Noticing that correctly.
And for me, it's back to what I said at the beginning, right? I gave a lot of secrets away, but it's sitting down, and for all of those listeners that are trying to figure out what they want to do in life, right? Mm-hmm. I tell people, start with a problem. Yeah. What problem are we solving? What problem? Like I did with the empanadas, right? Fresh, fast, affordable, tasty, healthier. That was the problem I was solving. Yeah. Solve it as simply as you possibly can. Have a brainstorming session. Document everything. Every idea is a good idea in those brainstorming sessions. Document it. Take that, turn it into a structured plan, something that you can show up for, and then turn it into an executable plan. X to Y by when. This. And just keep moving and move as fast as you possibly can. I think what happens a lot is people, especially nowadays, this instant gratification world we're living in, if people don't see results within a day, a week, a month, they're on to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. Yeah. Whereas they would have just had they just focused on being consistent and focused on solving that problem that they believed needed to be solved, they'll find success, and they can turn it into a real business, a real successful money-making business. We'll make $1 million selling empanadas this year. Mm. That's crazy to think about.
Right out of the gate.
Right out of the gate. It's amazing. But that's the reality. And I say that very humbly with a ton of gratitude.
Well, yeah, half of it is your magical personality, your wife.
Yeah, she's awesome. She's awesome.
Keep going. Sorry.
No, we covered it. I mean, that's the point I wanted to get across is have a problem to solve, have a brainstorming session of how you're going to do that, have a thesis to back it up, begin with the end in mind, what does success look like, and just get after it. Show up every single day, especially on the hard days, especially on the days where you're like, man, that was a rough one. Show up, show up, show up. Keep showing up.
Yeah. The thing I like to think about is we think everything has to happen right now and that a week is so long. And so people are doing the social media and the YouTube, just looking. And it's interesting. If you go plant something in the spring, like a seed of grass or a few seeds of grass in a patch, and you go to the expert and you say, if I water, just sprinkle this a little bit 3 times a day, when am I going to see that? He'll say 10 days, or she'll say 10 days.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting. Like, you're talking about this engagement. If you just take care of a brand new relationship and you engage and you meet the stranger instead of serve alone the stranger, and you plan on that relationship being forever, and you nurture it for just 10 days. Race your grass, like race nature. It's fast.
Yeah.
It's shocking. It won't be this afternoon.
Yeah.
But you'll blink and a week will be gone, and you will not be done if you don't pay attention, and your grass will be gone.
Yeah.
So it works fast.
Yeah.
What else? Give us one more marketing tip that you think is the key to growing something as quickly as possible.
Try. Just try anything. Be
Experiment.
innovative. Experiment. Be innovative. Try something new. We just filmed a video earlier this week that just launched on one of my socials. It's doing extremely well. Unheard of stuff. Guy pulls up on a motorcycle, pulls an empanada out of his pocket for a couple that's having a picnic, says, hey, have you tried these empanadas? No. Jump on the back of my bike, we'll go get some more, right? Just fun stuff. Have fun with it. Have fun. So when you're thinking about marketing, find a way to engage that is fun, that is different, that is innovative. Be willing to experiment, be willing to try, and don't be frustrated if something doesn't work out. Yeah. You're not going to go viral on every single video.
Yeah, no.
But just keep showing up. And maybe you have one view, but that one view, you helped that person. So focus on the right things. Why are we trying to engage? What are we trying to accomplish with our marketing campaign? What problem are we solving? Let's go try a bunch of different stuff and see what works. Are we getting results? Are we driving sales? Are we not? Simply. Keep it simple.
Fascinating. So experiment, focus on the excitement, the meaning, and always prioritize engagement. It's beautiful. Okay, to close things out, hey, I would love you to go back to marketing. In fact, I want to say this before we go into this final stretch of rapid fire advice. You're sitting in a job in a corporation, and you think it's there or on your own, and you have to make a choice. Or a lot of people, even that are entrepreneurial, think it's here or side hustle or working after time. It doesn't have to be that way. I don't have anything against working in a corporation if you keep that priority straight that we talked about in the beginning. Ideal client outcomes first, money for the company second. Yeah. But second's a great place. It's second on the podium. And then passion's third, and that's a controversial one, but there's an explanation I won't do on this episode. But we'll do that soon. Anyway, the idea is that if you have a platform of a job with a lot of money around, a lot of people that are smart, and you have a customer base, you are in a place where you can help human beings. And you are in a place where you can innovate some new microscopic way to serve, or a pretty big new feature, or something. You have this great place and facility and people that if you just dare to break out of the norms and not comply to every single thing that happens, or wait to be told, but do all the things that you're saying right in the platform of corporate America, good things happen.
Yeah, I agree.
And when you have a customer success, even if you're way back in line and you're not customer facing, if you have 3 successes in a row that are great work, it changes your career. That's what we found.
Yeah.
So anyway, so let's go globally in this time that we have. We have a few minutes left. In just a few minutes, reflect on everything we've talked about, but also reflect on all the things you've learned in this journey, in this transition into this more multiple company role that you're taking on.
Yeah.
And give people 18 to 30 or 50 that are just starting a new thing or in a new job or in a new work-life situation, what do they do this week and next week, etc.? What are the 3 to 5 really practicals that you would tell them to do?
First, I'd tell them to get their mind right. Make sure you've got mental toughness. Get it real right. We call it the discipline of desire in Stoicism, which means know what you can control and accept everything else as just being the way it must be, and that will be a very powerful moment for you. Discipline of desire is a super important concept.
How do you literally do that?
So it's very simple. It's very simple, but it takes a lot of hard work to make it very simple.
Mental work.
Mental work. Yeah. It's what can I control? The second something happens that's outside of your control, just accept it. It is what it is. It's necessary. All things are necessary.
So it's just a practice in these moments that are difficult in life, or going to a park and thinking and getting your philosophy strengthened in your heart and your amygdala and things.
It's training. When something happens, that's outside of your control, reminding yourself, I can't do anything about it, so I'm not going to let it affect the way I feel. I'm not going to let it bring me down. I'm not going to let it depress me. I'm not going to let it make me emotional. It is necessary. The reason of which I might not know, I have no business knowing why it needed to happen. So I'm going to leave it at that.
Yeah.
Right? So that's getting to a place where things outside of your control happen, let them go. Move on. Just keep moving forward.
Love it.
Don't dwell on them. I think people spend too much time dwelling, right? I also think what I would tell your listeners is the following. Want whatever you currently have. Whatever that is, no matter how hard it is, want it, desire it. Because how powerful is it to go from this place of being sad about something that's happened to you or mad about a card you were dealt, to stepping back and receiving it and saying, I have it, it is what it is, what am I going to do with it? Because the second you accept it as something you want, you now have control over it. You now can say, okay, I'm in a tough situation. I want to be in this situation because I have the opportunity to apply lessons I've learned in life to figure this out. See it as an opportunity for growth instead of a problem that's negatively impacting you or holding you down. Because that is going to allow you to be well here. And if you're well here and you're well here, there is no stopping you. Nobody can stop you. You might have to adjust, you might have to stay nimble. We always recommend people do that anyway. But see it as a stepping stone to getting to where you're going. I think we spend too much time trying to figure out, why did this happen? Why is this happening to me? Why do I have this problem? We spend way too much time on that when we could just quickly accept it as wanting it and then do something with it.
Great. It's great. Great. The other thing that it strikes me that it would do is it would, we've heard be like a little child, when you say I want that, it's like you get excited about it, not just adopt it and take it seriously and make the best of it, but you get excited about it too. So give us one more, two more, whatever you've got prepared for us. What else are the practical advices that you want to give?
I'd say relationships are an absolute priority, and it's give and it's take. It has to be symbiotic. Has to be, how am I going to contribute to this? And how are you going to contribute to this, right? So having those relationships, going out of your way to help other people accomplish what they want to accomplish in life is the only true way to accomplish what you want to accomplish in life. There's value. Every single one of your listeners has value. Every single one of your listeners have made mistakes. Every single one of your listeners have done something in life that they wish they could go back and redo. That is part of being human. And we forget that all too often because we think so much about ourselves. What I'm asking folks to do is think about other people more than you think of yourself. Be well here and here. Spend your time in the morning centering yourself. But that mental toughness matters because there's going to be hard things. When you go out on your own, when you become an entrepreneur, there is going to be hard things, right? You leave, you're excited, you've got all the energy around it, you've got some adrenaline, everything's great, it's going to be great. It's going to be hard. It's going to be really, really hard at times. And there's going to be times where you're like, man, maybe I should just go back to corporate America. Maybe I should just go get a real job again, right? That was easier. And in a lot of ways, it is easier.
Yeah.
That's why 90+% of the world never become entrepreneurs or try it for a month or two and go straight back to what they knew, because nobody wants to talk about how hard it is. It's in that hard that most people give up, that most people say, enough's enough. Because it's hard to wake up and show up every single day. What I encourage the listeners to think about is that hard part is what will make or break your success. That hard part is what nobody wants to talk about. That hard part is where you have to continue to show up if you really want to make it. But it all starts here, mental toughness.
And part of that is the relationships you're talking about. Like, go meet people. Be willing to meet strangers and start a relationship.
The last piece of advice I'll give is this. Comfort in ambiguity. It's one of the hardest things to teach. Comfort in ambiguity. So, learning how to thrive in the unknown. Learning how to thrive in uncharted territory. I think about maybe a little too often some of the early adventurers and explorers. I won't name names because I know there's some controversy around things, but those early adventurers that jumped on a ship from the old world to explore new uncharted territories, we celebrate them as entrepreneurs, as founders, as explorers, right? They were probably really scared. They probably left port in the old world saying, I don't know if I'm ever going to be back here again. I have no idea where this wind is going to take me, right? They maybe had a thought of what they were trying to accomplish, but they had to be super comfortable in ambiguity, in the unknown. And if you're going to set off as an entrepreneur, or if you're going to set down a path to find a career and find success in life, learn quickly to be super comfortable in ambiguity, in ambiguous situations. See yourself as a creator. See yourself as a pioneer. See yourself as an explorer. We're going into uncharted territories. What does that actually mean? Go take a walk in a forest without a map, and you'll quickly realize what I mean by being comfortable with ambiguous situations. Right? Just go walk in a forest for a few hours. You're probably going to get lost if you don't have a map, if you don't have a compass, if you don't have tools, if you don't have experience, right? And what I'm saying is going for that walk is what you're going to have to do to gain the experience, to gain the knowledge, to be able to the next time be able to say, oh, I've been here, done this now. I know what to do. But in your early days, you're not going to know what to do. Be comfortable with that. Be comfortable not knowing. And then go out and document, well, let's take the data and the analytics that we have. Give me any information whatsoever. Do I know north is north? Do I know south is south? Okay, that's better than nothing. Okay, now where are we trying to get to? And start plotting out the plan. So comfort in ambiguity, it's one of the hardest things to teach, but it's one of the most miraculous things you can learn.
Set a timer to pull out the GPS and be uncomfortable for a couple hours. And see if you can do it on your own.
Smile through it.
That's cool. That's cool. Very cool. Before I quit, I want to give you a chance to tell us where we can find you.
So
with the things that you're most interested in, a couple of them.
Doing some really fun things, helping a lot of great companies, coming up with some really cool concepts, building some awesome fintech technology right now. Best way to find me is on LinkedIn. Adam Farr, usually I'm one of the first ones that pop in. I'm active on LinkedIn. I like to get on there and see folks. You'll find me right now as the chair of Empanada Co. and CEO of Stealth Startups. You can find me on my podcast, Virtue and Victory, where we talk about all things life, chess, Stoicism, and how to bring it all together strategically to live a life well lived and find success. You can find my phone number on our Empanada Co website as well.
There
So
you go.
I'm not hard to find, is what I tell
Give him a
people.
call.
I am not hard to find.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
So
Well, Adam Farr, Chairman, CEO, Farr Ventures, thank you so much. Great advice.
thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.
Thank you for joining us to get leaders unstuck and thriving with their teams. You've heard a little bit about the power of bold encounters and leadership. Watch on. Go to full episodes with the iconic expert interviews at markspencercook.com/podcast. And please subscribe. My site takes you directly to YouTube video and podcast versions. Please make comments. Share this with your friends. Also, reach out to us to just brainstorm your priorities, challenges, events, or how bold encounters might help. Visit windfallpartners.com. Click the Let's Talk button without obligation and reach out. I look forward to speaking. Thank you for joining us. Now, let's lead with bold encounters today.